So very good morning all. Hope everybody fine under this pandemic situation, and it is very difficult time. Uh, it is against on human attack. It's kind of human attack on us, where we are now talking about cyber security on cyber attacks. So today my talk is basically on proactive security. Proactive means it's like a preemptive kind of thing. We need to take care of what, how do we in general counter attack, rather than say we counter attack, protect ourselves before any kind of attack. That is what the thought process at this moment. So at present, there are so many attacks are coming. Then proactively, if you want to be there and understanding those particular attacks well before is the important thing as part of the proactive. Let me share my presentation. Based on that, maybe this is not there are a lot of presentations. Oh, this is also not. Just give me a minute. Yeah. So the proactive security is basically is mainly we have to look about. You need to understand the problems with respect to you being as a person, because when we are talking about cyber security, there are three things are very much important, and we are knowing very well the word PPT. So as you being as a faculty or PhD students or students, so you know very well about PPT. PPT is like in a PowerPoint presentation, but PPT in security is people, process, and technology. So that's what people is first. Anything, anywhere, anything security means people, secure people is important thing. So that's what people is first. So that as a person, you need to understand what kind of cyber security issues or risks are there with respect to you. Then of course process. So everybody thinks about that. Process is not for an individual when it is coming to individual perspective. It's like an organization perspective. That's what everybody thinks, that organization should have a processes. But as an individual, we should also have a kind of processes. So let we generally do. So we may not write in different write these things in the paper, but organizations have to write on paper because variety of people are there in the organization. So when it is variety of people are available, so for everybody it may not be same processes. Based on the role, based on the responsibility, the process may change it. That is where organizations may be writing this process on paper and sharing every employee to do their respective jobs or responsibilities, whatever that. So that technology maybe is a kind of medium which is useful for implementing to secure ourselves. So that is where PPT is very important. But as coming to the individual, when this process may not be on paper, but we understand each other in a kind of wherever you are there as part of the family, as part of the society, that what to do, what not to do. So that is where you follow by learning to others. So similarly, when you are getting an attacks towards you, you should understand that what kind of attacks are there while I'm using a computer, while I'm using a cyber device. That is where finding these kind of finding these issues at early stage and addressing them. How, even in case if that threat happens to me, and that how threat would be happens to me, then how we can avoid those threats. So this is what one kind of risk management, and understanding the risk is one of the part of the early job while we are doing with respect to the proactive security. So that's what. See, even though we are talking about as individual, it automatically applies for even the organization also, even though nation also. So nation is nothing but the people. People are nothing but, even though the organization is also part of the nation. So that's what we understand. We have to understand about these problems as much as early, and addressing them is that what we call in generally proactive security. So as part of this problem process, you have to know your weaknesses. You have to work on particularly improving those to avoid those weaknesses. Weaknesses here in the technology, generally we say as part of the human way, uh, as we are, as in we are all individuals may say weaknesses, but when it is coming to the technology or taking cyber point of view, that weakness is generally called as a vulnerability. Vulnerability in a system, vulnerability
Murthy sir,
in a network
Murthy sir,
device.
Murthy sir, I'm extremely sorry to interrupt you. The participants are requesting if you can please share your presentation. So the
They are
presentation
not
is
able to see the presentation.
yes, they actually are requesting for the presentation.
Yeah,
If you can please
sorry,
share it.
I'm very sorry, I didn't share, I think so.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. So this is the when you, after finding your problems, what kind of problems you are expecting, then you have to know yourself what kind of weaknesses and this to and work upon them. Then continuous monitoring for anomaly, what can happen to you, and ready to prepare or prepare to be responding those such kind of anomalies. How do you stop it or how do you avoid it? So that is where, after understanding the finding the problems, knowing the vulnerabilities, monitoring the anomalies, you may have to collect a lot of meaningful data, lot of data. But out of that data, you should find out the meaningful data and use it to improve. So that is where you can make your security as much as simple. So how, what to do, what how do you can simply avoid some kind of attacks? And of course, you need to reevaluate your approach while you are finding something, whatever that based on the data you are collecting. And importantly, you should understand that you need to share this with others because of you are facing this attack. So, as part of the proactive cybersecurity, you should also intimate others as a proactively, so that maybe you might have lost some kind of money or some kind of systems with respect to attacks, whatever you have. But the same thing, when you publish to share with others, then they will take care of, and you are stopping, at least you are not able to stop yourself, but at least you are stopping others. So that is where these simple things, finding the problems, knowing about your vulnerabilities, monitoring for anomalies. Anomalies are so many, so we will try to discuss all the things possible. Then collecting the meaningful data and simplify your security paths to protect them. And of course, whatever the security you are implementing, you are re-evaluating your approach, because the attacks are growing day by day. And a malware is coming to you today, and the same malware maybe is proliferated in another format on tomorrow. So based on that, your re-evaluation is required as part of the security. And of course, if you share it, that others will learn from them, so that you are supporting. So what kind of security control should be? Say any security control as part of the proactive which you are planning to preparing, that should be an integrated approach. What do you mean by integrated approach? See that when a user is accessing from a website from his place to in a server somewhere in the Singapore, let's say you are accessing a web page of Singapore government to visit Singapore for taking in a visa. So what exactly you do that? You are opening a browser, am I right? And you are typing something singapore.com or something.sg, and when you type it, that is going to through network, through some routers and reaching to the server. But before reaching the server, they may be installed some proactively, some firewalls, some intrusion detection systems, some switches, then web server. In the web server, there is a database, and in the database, maybe some information you are trying to access. So
Murty sir, Murty
yes.
sir, sorry to interrupt again. Can you please again share your screen? It's not visible to the participants.
Pardon me.
Yeah, if you can sir, share the screen.
Yeah, I shared the screen. It's not coming.
Not now, sir. It was earlier, but not now.
See, I'm able to see that in one of the screen.
Yes, sir, but the window is basically in a minimized mode. That's why.
Yes. I'm now it is. Is it full screen?
Actually, not, sir. It's basically a minimized window.
It's coming.
Not yet, sir.
So what is the reason? I'll
If you
share
can
it now.
please, if you can please stop it once and then reshare it.
Stop sharing. Again, I'm sharing entire screen. Share it. It's coming.
I can see the screen, sir, but I cannot see the presentation yet.
Yeah, now it is coming, sir.
It's coming. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Now it's coming. Are you just now okay?
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay. So that should be integrated and integrated in the sense from a web browser to various devices. Even though that the devices are not controlled by Singapore website, Visa website, but however, when you reach to Singapore Visa, that respective website, they might have, there is a firewall, there is an intrusion detection system, their router, gateway router, their switches, their databases. So many devices are there. So when you are planning to access that, if suppose let's say they wanted to monitor your activity, so they need to collect the information from your browser itself, because anyway you are planning to reach my website, so that website, what kind of browser you are using, which place based on your IP address, I can identify that. When it is coming to my gateway router, that also router at what time you have reached it, and from the router firewall to number of switches, of course logically switch would be there in between firewall and router, then it pushes to the web server, then web server to database, and in a database some file you're accessing. There are 4 or 5 main devices with respect to, they can collect the data about what you are accessing, what file you are uploading for applying the visa, everything they can create a log. So that is integrated approach, so what exactly you are doing, that is where. And this should be always is not manually. When they want to connect, they should automate it. And scalable, it is like even the 1 lakh users are connecting at a time, it should be scalable. And adaptive, see, to adaptive means it can create automatically another VM to take up load, and always actionable and intelligent. See, adaptive ke liye this actionable and intelligent, and based on the intelligence, a person in India is applying from the visa from India. If a person is applying a visa from different place, whether he belongs to India and that different place, that is way that should give a kind of an action report immediately to that. So that is where all these things come will under part of the proactive security. See, because is a, based on the growing of the attacks, number of attacks, they are all number of attacks are coming on a daily day basis. There are 6,000 malwares are coming on every day. That each malware doesn't belong to you, but however it can belong to some other software. So the very time is very less, so that you need to create a kind of intelligence for understanding or estimating a cyber threat. So that is where the major function of the proactive security. So end goal is, so rather than sitting in a babysitting, more time for harder problems, you need to, that proactive security solution should be given. Okay, so what is that you do that? See, basically, you should work, you should build a kind of a testing environment when you host some kind of an application. Let's say any small company generally hosts the application. That application should test continuously and use some kind of an attack surface in such a way that so that application can sustain for a various different attacks. That so that what you can along with that test environment, you can do a kind of an automated vulnerability attack surface discovery. Of course, every software which is finding the vulnerabilities with respect to that application may not be, or you cannot do 100% automation, or there are a lot of false positives and false negatives should be there. And even if you take IBM AppScan or NetSpacker, any software, definitely 20 to 30% are false positives and false negative. What do you mean by false positive? False positive is that even it is not an attack, okay? Otherwise, even though it is an attack, non-attack, it shows as an attack, or even the non-attack, it shows an attack. Otherwise, so that's what is a positive. False thing is showing as a positive, and negative thing as a shows as a false. So that is where even though that is attack, is showing that it is not attack, is a false negative. So that is where the 20 to 30% of the all tools are having. You require a kind of a manual testing also, whether really that particularly showing vulnerabilities, they are really vulnerabilities, or something it is not showing an a vulnerability is really an a vulnerability. That is where manual vulnerability is required. Even the lot of automation, but validation ke liye, you should do manual vulnerability discovery. So what are the steps in generally you do in the proactive security? Let's say risk assessment is the first step. Until, see, because when you are using a computer as a simply when we define, so what kind of risk would be there as an individual at your home? So when you are using a computer and when you power on, the power itself is in a risk. Suppose let's say your computer works on based on the 50 volt or some kind of power range levels. If when a surge in the power or suddenly spike in the power, how do we stop it? So definitely this computer, this whatever the computer installed, that may spoil entire your data because of the some SFBS down and all. Whether spoils data are different thing, because if it is hard disk is corrupted, then your data also spoiled. So that is the second level risk. But however, protecting your surge or spike in the power, so what you need to use some such protector, a spike protector, you have to use it to control. Otherwise, you have to keep UPS. That is where to avoid such kind of attacks, so you need to do a risk of everything, like from the installation of the physical device. And if suppose data disk risk is there, somebody can come and simply copy your data, so that you require an encryption such that every action you are doing on that computer, there should be a risk assessment based on your requirements. Then once you assess the risk, what could be the impact? Sometimes what happens, you have a computer, normal computer, 2 computers are there at home. Okay, you bought for a 2 lakh rupee, and of course there is no value of the data. But to protect those computers, you are keeping in a security guards for 3 members, 24 hours, and spending of 30,000 rupees is what is no worth. Even though somebody stealing that particular computer, rather than investing the keeping in a guards, so better let you can buy another system with that money, invested money on security. So that is where we need to analyze the impact analysis of every risk what you implemented. Then how do we prevent the risk is the other thing. So there are risks, impact. So how do we prevent? In some cases we may not prevent. Then what is the alternative? So how do we mitigate the risk? That is where we know that. So a threat analysis we need to do that. based on the threat analysis, cost estimation, we need to do that and decide upon that how much you can keep the or planning that particular response with respect to. That is where we consider this proactive security as a very important aspect as part of the cyber security. So what is exactly? It is a being secure before acted. See, it's a kind of an acting very well before, on well before an attack, on well before and this one. It is exactly opposite of the reactive security. Reactive means once incidents happen, then you will go and collect the data and how incident happened. You will check logs, then you will put it into the court, and you may be pointing out that whoever done that. So it's a long process. So proactive security is let somebody should not come by identifying very well before that somebody can do something on your system. It tries to mitigating and preventing the risk very well before. It's we are installing antivirus is a proactive security. Because why you are installing antivirus, somebody should not send in a virus to my computer so that they can corrupt the data or they can copy the data. So the computer, how they steal? By implementing a malware. To clean the malware, I'm using an antivirus. It gives you a chance to estimate the feature that basically you can understand about your features and your security requirement very well by doing or by implementing the proactive security. So estimating features gives you a chance to do response planning. Once you understand about your application and your application behavior, definitely you can do a lot or to do in cybersecurity. Everything is required, not required. You are implementing a Java application, but you are implemented for a monitoring system for all application. Why you required to monitor each and every application? So if a monitoring application with respect to Java should be enough. So that is where you look into that. See what exactly the steps which you have to do as part of the previously discussed. See, discover it. And if you're looking at a hacker and a hacker perspective, he also collects a lot of information gathering before attack. Similarly, you also to do as part of the proactive security, you need to find, you need to discover the problems with respect to your system. Problems in the hands, what kind of problems you have as an implementer of the particular system. Then you have to scope that how do we solve this problem, and why do by using this problem somebody cannot attack on your organization. For that you need to do assessment, like how you assess each and every application as a hacker. You need to assess the gap area, how to cover those gap area. That is what part of the proactive security. Then report it, and remediation, of course, the training and awareness is an important aspects. Plans are nothing, but planning is everything. So there is no need of any plans, but planning karna bahut important hai. Whether you are an individual, whether you are working in an organization, or whether you are part of some college or educational institute. So planning is everything. That is what. So if you are comparing to the other as an individual user, sorry, the discovery is nothing but information gathering. Scoping, why you are doing a scoping, a particular purpose. Scoping is what purpose you are doing this particular proactive security. The purpose is always mainly to secure your systems. That is what scope. To secure your system, you need to identify the gaps as part of the information gathering. Then assessment. So if I'm asking all of you the question generally, maybe you are working in your college, whether any time, whether you have done any kind of understanding of your environment, what are the systems are there? This question to everybody, you can chat it. So I'm opening chat. Uh, what kind of systems you have in your system, in at your home or at your college or at your there, or whether you are using a particular email server anytime, whether you expected that what email server is, what kind of operating system installed on that e-learning server, because you are not part of the e-learning e-learning or email administration. So but when you are accessing that particular thing, whether anytime you have understood that what kind of operating system installed on that? Anybody? Manoj Dixit, Rishika Sharma, Manjur Lone. So anybody can use, tell that what is the operating system your email system is working, your email. Jubair Mosulti, yeah, raise your hand.
Yes, sir.
Can you chat?
Yes, sir. We are using Windows Server 2016 Server Edition.
Windows 2016 edition operating system. Then
Yes, sir.
what is that email server they are using?
The mail server, I am not sure about which particular mail service they're using, but operating system is Windows 2016 Server Edition.
So definitely that is what, once we understand a particular particularly that operating system is Windows 2016 server, if that is the mail server, definitely they might have a using Microsoft Exchange. Am I right? So when I'm part of that particular operating system and particular Exchange server, then immediately as part of the proactive security, what can I expect? I can expect very easily that there are some kind of vulnerabilities are available with respect to Windows 2016 and Windows eWindow Exchange also. Am I right? So that kind of vulnerabilities are available or not. How do you know that there are vulnerabilities exist in this operating system or Exchange server? There is a CVE. If you can type the CVE, basically CVE, see cva.mithre.org. So this is the one of the website, mithre.org. And if you look about that, so these many are there. There are 178 organizations from 30 countries participating as CNA program. CNA program is the CV numbering other authorities. So these are all supporting that. So the respective so vendors and projects 161, vulnerability resources 1 member at this moment. So there are big bounty programs are running for root DNS 2. So these are the people, CVS, and you can search a CVS list and just type Windows 2016. So these many vulnerabilities are there in this system. If you look at a remote, so this is the CVE 2019-584. A remote code execution vulnerability exists when the Windows Jet database engine improperly handles objects. So whether that particular Jet database is available or not, or by default you are installed or not, you need to check it. That is the things you want to take care of. So that is where we generally look about these such CV lists, and even though you can download, some of the downloads are there. So let's say if you wanted to know about these records and all, so this is one of the website will give you a lot of things for you when it is we are doing some kind of an understanding of an operating system and what kind of vulnerabilities are there. And in case if you are writing papers, so these you can write papers and based on these records also when you are particularly working on a particular research on Windows 16 operating system or implementing a kind of an integrated system, etc. So please look into this cve.mitra.org for vulnerabilities list of any kind of, it's not only Windows, whether it could be a Linux, whether it could be a database, MySQL, PostgreSQL, whatever. So you can consider in this.
Hello.
Yes.
Good morning, sir.
Yes, madam, please.
Sir, how what we can search in CVE list in the search toolbar?
So let's say at a home you are using 2 or 3 devices. Let's say one is Windows, some Linux device, some mobile device which is having Android operating system. How do you know that what kind of vulnerabilities are still exist in your system? So it's not only that there could be some tools you can use it identifying the what kind of vulnerabilities are there. But what is that vulnerability? What is that impact of that vulnerability? You should understand. Am I right? So this
Yes.
CP is a database of all known vulnerabilities. So what kind of vulnerability and what is the impact and how do you patch it? That information also there are recommendations available. And of course, it is a kind of a website. Common people who are supporting from the research organizations, vulnerability analysts, and vendors all participating and supporting. Even though somebody is designed an application like an application testing. Let's take example of IBM AppScan, which tests the web applications. They also takes this database as a one reference, and of course, like antiviruses, also they also takes from this only reference. As you know that even though antivirus is a kind of an attack, am I right? So when
Right.
it is coming, why it is coming to your system? When your system is having the vulnerability, that means a weakness either in operating system application, that antivirus is coming. Virus is coming, malware is coming. Malware is a kind of program which can sits on your vulnerability. So that means malware is an exploit that sits, and that malware also gives kind of a remote connection to the end user where he is doing something on your system. So any attack happens, vulnerability, exploit, payload. These three are very much important. Either one is not there, so attack never happens. Even your system is vulnerable, but there is no exploit, so your attack cannot be, somebody cannot use your system. And vulnerability there in your system, exploit is all available, but payload is not there. Payload is what? That remotely the member should connect to your system and forward that exploit to in your system,
Data.
and
Right.
then install in your system. Then only that possible attack possible. Am I right? So that is where
Right.
he uses some email as in a payload. He sends a document to you. When you double click the document, then that exploit sits on your computer where that uses your vulnerability and hacks. So these three are very important. Uh, but to understand whether you want to develop as part of your research something you want to develop exploit and payload, so you should know about very carefully about entire vulnerability information of the vulnerability. So this vulnerability database would be useful for doing such kind of an research. So proactive security when it comes, so proactively you wanted to act or build some kind of an understanding your vulnerabilities and impact and avoid such kind of an attacks. You need to consider this database as your database. Of course, this is a known database, known vulnerabilities, but there are zero-day vulnerabilities where no exploit is available and no information is available, which we generally call zero-day vulnerabilities. Hope you understood this. Shall I continue?
Thank you, sir. Yes, yes, sir. Thank you.
So what is the global scenario with respect to the proactive security? The cybersecurity failure costs continue increasing as a high profile. See, whomever part of the cybersecurity, their life, career life is a long life. Of course, even though, as I said, that there is no age limit for this, because the world is moving slowly for every, even though like industries which are not required any IT ICT, they are moving IT ICT. Whatever the reason, either government encouraging, all governments are encouraging across the globally to be part of digital. Digital means cyber. So when the cyber is there, security is must. When people are there, people security is must. Similarly, when cyber devices are there, cyber security is must. But however we do that, whether proactively or consciously or reactively, whatever the way you do that, you can do that. But we are today talking about this proactively. So the basis of proactive security is always strategic based. Generally, the military principle they use it here. So either some country, rather than before attacking or attacking another country, these proactive security implements generally use it. So military principles of taking the fight to the threats where we need to build threat intelligence. So intelligence important. What happens tomorrow? That identifying the very well before is important. There is something is happening in some area, general intelligence. So how the intelligence people will work on that. So they may be threat. Like you see that some last year there is a huge what you can floods. So they didn't never expect the cloud burst so that the floods will come. So there is no intelligence on properly. So if the same thing they have, then these are the cloud bursts can happen in these areas. So that in this time, so making alert them is how they do in the physically. Similarly, now also in the cyber world also, we need to expect some attacks. See, but these attacks are not same on everywhere. Sometimes, let's say take example of Petya ransomware, WannaCry ransomware. These are ransomwares are every day they are coming. But what exactly how do you counter attack? And how do you expect that the next ransomware? So whether it is possible to do you that, and if it is that coming, what kind of things they will take it. For me, any ransomware is patch. Patches are enough. If you are patching your operating systems and regularly, these ransomware is maybe you can fight very well. Along with that patches, and if you won't click any kind of links by yourself, that would be a crime. But proactive security without clicking the links, how do you make your business? That is the bigger challenge. Yes, everybody says simply that don't click the link. So simple technique is that rather than clicking the link, just copy paste and do that. Even though when you do copy paste and when it is goes and a malware can draw down on your system, so that some kind of a pop-up blocks and all you have to do that, or otherwise you have to simply install a sandboxing environment. Here again, my question is that how many people installed sandboxing environment at your place? Let me see that your chat box. How many people are installed? Or any member whether installed a sandboxing environment? One member at least. Ambarina Munir says no. Rajkumar Shahi, no. Preeti Naik, no. Nobody is saying yes. Now this question I am asking in different way. How many members are installed? Virtual machines or virtual box or something else, like a virtual kind of. Rajkumar is saying yes. Rishika is saying yes. Yes. Preeti Naik or Dr. Kamalesh Sharma saying yes. Now I am asking same question. Rajkumar Shahi is saying no initially, now yes. So that's what. So you are working on sandboxing. See, sandboxing is a kind of a software. There is nothing yet. When you are implementing a software, sandboxing environment is different. But when you wanted to work on an operating system as a virtually, that is itself is also sandboxing. That's what my point. So you are already using sandboxing for operating system. When you download some application, some kind of a malware, better download there. What happens if anything, something is happening to your operating system? Only that virtual machine will affect, not your virgin base machine. Am I right? So you're creating such sandboxing environment So always I suggest researchers and faculty, when it is coming in the security, first always test on sandboxing, virtual box or VMware workstation or virtual PC, whatever the way sandboxing environment you are using. See, when I'm asking sandboxing in different way, of course, is the virtual machine is called as a sandboxing? We cannot say fully yes. The way you use it purpose, that is what the kind of environment. So there are open source sandboxes are there. Just check, like type open source sandboxing. This is the Cuckoo sandbox. So basically, you may be not installing the Cuckoo sandbox, but you just install it. It is like a virtual machine. And always you install an under virtual machine, that is also. So basically this is work for Windows, Apple, or Linux, or even the Android also. So this is the leading open source automated malware analysis system. So better it can analyze the many different malicious files as well as malicious websites. Suppose if you are accessing a malicious website, rather than accessing directly from your machine, just access from the this Cuckoo sandbox where it is installed on Windows, Linux, Mac OS, Android system. So I hope you are learning something new. So this is where you need to do that. And to defend and increase resilience against the effects of advanced persistent threats. What do you mean by advanced persistent threats? So like any threat, if somebody is coming and taking that or stealing any money or stealing of your properties, somebody is doing, is that an attack? Somebody is stolen. But somebody is sitting in your home and continuously observing what you are doing is kind of a persistency is creating. So in the computer era also, so they install malware at your system or your organized system to continuously monitor and understand your business things. And he never do anything wrong with your organization, but he is waiting for that all the information, whatever you are saving, critical information, he is simply copying without knowing about yourself. Somebody is copying. So that is where the threat, this threat is called the persistent threat, and he is coming into your place and stealing everything, and you are not able to identify. So during 2017, China APT1 was almost 6.8 terabyte data from 137 organizations, even though they didn't find, even though by 2018-19. So that is where the 2 years also somebody is taking your thing, you don't know. Somebody is installing your application, like even if you look about that, what is the browser generally uses in the Chinese mobiles? UC browser. You all thinking that UC browser is for the only browsing the things, but UC browser is also sending your Facebook information, your Facebook messages to that UC browser server. Why they are doing, and you don't know as an end user. Why they are doing? Maybe they wanted to do understand your behavior. Based on the behavior, they wanted to create a kind of things. So proactively they were collecting the information to understand user behavior, user interest. Based on that, they can create a kind of a market in the sense, if you like, if you are saying that some kind of items are very nice, if you are feeling, they create based on that survey, they create as many as, and they dump it to India, Pakistan, Bangladesh. Because so when any product which you are doing, like a manufacturing in India, the product cost is 100 rupees. How they do that? If that 100 rupees cost came based on if they can sell 1 crore such kind of mugs, 100 rupees, so they create 100 crore or 1 crore mugs for 100 into 1 crore, 100 crore with the business. They estimate and do it. But China, what does that? Okay, India में इतना ये mug interest है, पाकिस्तान में ये mug interest है, और बांग्लादेश में mug interest है, श्रीलंका में ये mug interest है, सिंगापुर में ये mug interest है. So total in the globally they required 1,000 crore mugs, not 100 crore, 1 crore nahi. Every country, let's say take example 1 crore each. There are 6 crore, 8 crore is okay. See, printing of a mug of 1 crore, printing of a 10 crore mugs is maybe the cost is very effective at a time. So they print those mugs at a time and they distribute with the supply chain management so that the cost would be the better than Pakistan, better than India, better than Bangladesh, better than this. So they get it for only 25 rupees, 30 rupees. That is why Chinese products are quality. Of course, quality, there are 2, 3 types of quality. This quality is a lesser quality. And we cannot say that India's, Pakistan's, and Sri Lanka's quality is a better quality. Uh, but that is where the business. So why we are considering this example? They understand an individual user in all aspects. You may be using a mobile. It's not for cyber attack. It may be a understanding your interest. So that's what data is flowing. But you doesn't know about that. So that app is persistently taking your data and forwarding the data to the respective servers. That is where the persistent threat we called. And if that is gone into the organization level and they are collecting that huge data, code, everything of in a particular organization from last 1 year, 2 years, so that is called advanced persistent threat. Then next thing is global generation deception technology for combating the advanced attacks. If you wanted to look about this deception technology, you can go to this ATO Cyber Defense Magazine 2020. And of course, Gartner predicting that by 2025, 75% of enterprises' generated data will be created and processed at the edge routers. So edge means it's all not in your individual inside of your center. So most of the things would be stored at edge security required at the time. So there is a 43.4 billion market they were expecting by 2027. Then software as a service based application recording a growth by 33% as compared to the previous year's data. Markets forecast the software defined networking market to grow from USD 8.8 billion to 28.9 billion by 2023. That is what has happened. Audit and assessment as a proactive security recording growth to 42%. So this is where this proactive security market is growing better way because of the as many as attacks are day. So every day there is a new attack is coming. When every day there is a new attack is coming, how do we buy a system or buy a solution for every day? So, and as many as solutions are keeping for as many as devices is difficult. So that's what moving all devices at one place and look about the security, all non-important things, whether you have a security or no security, we don't have any problem because that is nothing would be there. Let's take example. If I'm giving a system and you're working in a organization, what is system cost? 1 lakh rupee. Okay. High-end system is required. You need to test for data mining. You required your instead of data desktop. I need to give a workstation. Workstation cost is 2 lakh rupee. So instead of that, why can't you install a VM and VM at a cloud and let him? And during this pandemic situation, everybody is working remote. There is no such system at home. So simple, you give a kind of a system, railway reservation system, no diskless system. You give it to them and give an internet system like by using a Raspberry Pi kit. Let him connect his own VM at my cloud and work. Even the software license also can be distributed in such a way that if only 10 users are compiling the program, why you require 100 members this software every system? Let whomever compiling, let them complain. So 10% of 20% licenses only they utilize it. There you can reduce this thing also. So everything on edge and data center. So everybody connect from anywhere and work and compile it and give the work back. So that kind of system, so that I can improve the security at one place rather than each and every individual. Even though there is no requirement of antivirus because that is the diskless system. It's only for connecting. Disk is there. No data, no importance is required. So that is where the proactive security improving, the markets are improving. Okay, then we will look into that. I'll come back to here. So we need to have some kind of a security engineering. We need to implement it. Why? Because if you look about that, first thing, we are always identifying the assets. See what assets you have, what kind of cyber security risk possible in that system. So for that, you need to design some security engineering. Look about an asset, and asset can be divided into software, hardware, and networking. Then when it is a software, it could be a design, development, and integration, where for designing that software, you require this hardware and networking. So then when you are designing, maybe having some vulnerabilities, while you are developing some vulnerabilities, integration, when you are doing integration of multiple softwares into one single software, there would be a vulnerability. Then your engineering practices would come, organizational process will come, then end product comes. So everywhere, every place that you need to identify the what kind of vulnerabilities, rather than starting that on end product. Of course, end product you have to do that, because while you are adding engineering practices and organizational process, when a product, while you designed, you identified vulnerabilities and covered. But when this product is implemented in another organization based on their requirements, new vulnerabilities may come. So there also you need to test it. So everywhere you have to test these assets, and that is one point. So design principles, practices, and models. So those you need to do from that designing itself. So the end result could be the development of a product or supporting the organizational process, and the product could be hardware, software, or any combination of both also. So that is where you need to look into that. So assets are again sensitive assets, require assurance. What kind of assurance required? Either confidentiality and integrity. How confidentiality integrity is achieved through either encryption or implementing in a public key infrastructure and key management. And then this can be compromised or tested through very well. So these are all through cyber analytic attacks. So how do we implement it? Managing by cyber cryptographic standards, whether they are following or not. Similarly, need protection from unauthorized disclosure or tampering. The sensitivity of assets determined by that confidentiality and integrity requirements, and the impact of compromise on the organization or national security also applies, so that we can use a number of cryptographic methods and solutions can provide assurance to protect the assets from compromise. Then we need to implement a lot of security models, a scheme for specifying and enforcing the security policies, where we talked about people, then policies, and policies should be implemented. And of course, there is a security service layer. So whether it could be application security, platform security, or network security layer. So you need to continuously identify that. Where threats are coming, threats could be a destruction, somebody destruct your data, somebody corrupt your data, somebody may remove your data and keep their data as part of the website disclosures. Interruption, frauds can happen. Of course, you need to implement these security service dimensions like privacy, non-repudiation, integration, confidentiality, communication security, audit and log, availability, access control implementation, authorization, authentication implementation, all will come as part of the, it's a proactively we need to implement these things. And a security model is nothing but is a computer model which is used to identify and improper security policies, impose security policies. So it is a kind of a framework which is a scheme for specifying and enforcing the security policies as an proactively. So these models are used for maintaining mainly that cybersecurity principles, which somebody may discuss about this confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So next generation reception network, so nothing but is early detection of lateral movement. So anything, something happens afterwards, that should be intimated very well before your system is attacked. Your system may get an attack so and so time. If you can give such kind of intelligence to any organization, that is where comes under this generation of deception network. Of course, the idea of deceiving cyber attackers into thinking they have accessed valuable data, because this is not new technology. In 1999 itself, honeypots are evolved, and but honeypots are incapable of interacting with a spear phishing attack. Somebody is doing spear phishing attack on a particular CEO, like let's say if your principal is sending a message to you all as a spoofed email message, you please submit your details fully on to me on so and so date, because that mail came from the your principal. You all respond immediately and support that for that activity, but actually that mail was not sent. But such kind of honeypots, because this is a mail sent it, so honeypot cannot recognize it, meaning they won't able to track the such kind of criminal or attack. So cyber criminals are always constantly sniffing out honeypots. So what is exactly you required as part of the general next generation of deception network? Think like an attacker to create a stronger layer of security. And in generally, red teams agree. We will talk about that. What is exactly red teams? Honeypots fail in comparison to incapable next generation deception technology. So when it is deception and honeypots, when you compare it, both honeypots and next gen deception technology set out proactively deceive and track cyber communication. So generally attackers will deceive the end user and attack in the machine, but cyber deception is as part of the proactive side. We create a such kind of environment that where it deceives the attackers. So attackers collect that environment and then they may use in future attack on our organization. While they are using itself, while they are collected data, what kind of data they collected, we can get early and we can expect that there is could be an attack, possible attack in future. That is where this deception technology works. So that's where the similarities are and for both sides and deception and honeypot. Each approach looks very different from both the interface and criminal perspective. But honeypots are in generally hardware based, like a sensors in between, like it's like a servers itself hosted at what is that, non-patchable servers where no intelligence, no support from that organization to secure them. But however, attackers are able to understand it. They might have kept for intentionally to collect the attackers' data. They can expect easily, so that it should be patched partially, it should be not partially, and like even the security people, how they misses the patches. In that way, you have to host it so that physical systems that are deployed on the network base and configured like any other workstation, these honeypots. So, and also these honeypots are static system, act as sort of sandbox. Something is coming and it is connecting and taking the data and keeping the data in the sandbox. So luring attackers in what the promise of sensitive data and then keeping track of their every move. That is what. See, then attacker comes to that machine and then only it can understand. But when it is coming to the next gen deception, it's like a mirrors. It's everywhere when he comes, everything when he crosses, there is a mirror of my server is there, so that it is attracting him in such a way that he will give that his footprints to me. The false information is placed in the path of attackers who will use this information in their lateral movement infiltration phase. That is where this deception network works. Where honeypots are working as like a single system. When honeypots are confined, next-gen deception technology is far more alluring and pervasive. So what is that proactive threat monitoring? Second point is that proactive threat monitoring. Threat monitoring refers to a type of a solution or process dedicated to a continuously monitoring across your systems, across your networks, across your endpoints, for understanding of some gap areas, you can understand very easily with the threat monitoring solutions. Oh, somebody is able to create it because it tests himself what kind of vulnerabilities it can check as a kind of integration of vulnerability and monitoring. And what is the threat hunting? Threat hunting is the process of proactively searching the cyber threats. See, threat monitoring, when something is coming to your side, that is continuously monitoring and doing. But threat hunting is it go and check across the world similar kind of threats or who have been done and how they have been done. That is why it finding and lurking in undetected in a network, and this is digs deep into find malicious actors in your environment that have a slipper. Let's take example, a Windows machine is there, and Windows machine, when you install, you have a taken snapshot. After a few days again you have a taken snapshot, and you didn't use this machine intentionally. But after second time when you review it, there are number of file changes are happened, and you kept it as a part of deception technology. When the changes are happened, what are the changes? If you look into that, so the same thing can happen to the other missions also. Then immediately find out what other missions, whether you have the same changes by themselves without any user intervention. That is why you need to identify them. There are changes are happen. So that is why hunting such kind of things will come under threat hunting. Now, what is proactive threat hunting? Is the proactively searching through networks or data sets or data set to detect and respond to advanced cyber threats that evade traditional rule or signature-based security controls. So that means you need to install kind of a dynamic firewall, or you can say that every layer it can understand what exactly it is doing and proactively identifying them. Even though some rule was crossed in some layer, another layer you can easily catch them. So what is proactive threat monitoring? Is the process of proactively monitoring systems and the networks to identify risks and estimate the possible attacks. That is where. So these are the some of the solutions are the major solutions are coming within 2 years, 3 years from vendors. Like how deception technology is one type and threat monitoring is another type. Now coming to the edge security, perimeter defenses are not showing down attackers. So we are implementing as many as perimeter devices during last 20 years. So every day, based on that evolution of attacks, these perimeter technologies are increasing. The way method of identifying the attackers also increasing. But it does mean that the attackers are made down some of the attacks because of these devices? No. So that's what edge security is, the type of enterprise security for corporate resources that are no longer located within the protective boundaries of centralized data. There is no like a perimeter security kind of for them. It is used to protect users and apps at the furthest reaches or edge of a company's network where sensitive data is highly vulnerable to security threats. Let's just say example, deface up in a website. If a website installed or hosted at a particular website, you can deface it. If it is vulnerabilities, exploits are available, you can easily deface it. Even though you deface and you kept your file, but the website still is running. What could be the reason? Anybody? What could be the reason? I defaced a website, but still website is coming within minutes, but different place. What kind of that? Anybody? Oh, I'm not seeing your. Anybody? Okay, nobody's responded with respect to this question. Dr. Kamlesh Sharma is asking about how can we test on virtual machine. So maybe this is you are talking about sandboxing. Sandboxing is, I told that Cuckoo sandboxing. Cuckoo sandbox is also kind of a virtual environment to test malicious application, to test malicious URLs where you are visiting. Similarly, your virtual machine also, if you are keeping and doing anything, you all might have taken a snapshot. No, that snapshot could be utilized once if anything happens to with your system. The back, whatever that you have taken snapshot before that activity, that can come back so that nothing will happen to your system. So that is where you can have on these virtual machines also. Now coming back to again this particular edge security. So whether you have knowing some knowledge with dark web or not, there is a peer-to-peer, like I2P servers are there. When I host I2P servers, so my server would be stored at a different websites, different places. Okay, even though you deface it with that, but until I signs that nothing will be hosted, even though you are able to deface it with some attacks, you made it down and you change your pages, but until I allowed into I2P network, that cannot be done. The similar kind of mechanism we can use it with blockchain. When you host, you can host your website in a different places where, so even though somebody downs, until that the remaining website keys are supporting and accepting the changes, that cannot be, nothing will happen to their website. That website is coming from the different places. Like that kind of technologies are coming at this moment. But here edge security is that, so whole network must be visible to administrator. So it is all point of view. If somebody is hosting application at place and other center is hosting another application, you cannot see each and every application under your view. So because all web applications you are hosting, it will come into the one place where continuous visibility on administrator and continuously automated tools must be used by those administrators, where who is accessing, how they are accessing, what file they were accessing inside server, whether it came to the web page to database to you are going back, or database is also trying to tinkering with other the tools. Everything can be monitored, and of course the data where stored is encrypted at rest and in transit. So because at rest and in transit, what would be the difference? Let's say you take example of WhatsApp. What is WhatsApp? WhatsApp, everybody says end-to-end encryption. That means what? So whatever the data you are storing in the WhatsApp is secure? Anybody? Actually, no. So it's only end-to-end encryption they are saying is in transit, not in rest. So whatever the message you are forwarding from your mobile to another mobile, it is forwarding to other side. When it is forwarding, data is transmitting from your mobile to other mobile is secure. But once you are forwarded the data in your mobile, and whoever received it, the data, same data in the mobile are not secure. Maybe if you are using some encryption mechanism in your mobile, that encryption mechanism works so that cannot be accessed. If you are not using, then the data can be accessed anybody. If somebody is taking your mobile and copying your mobile, so that would be possible. And you may be sometimes taking a backup and storing in Google Cloud or other Microsoft Cloud, so where that WhatsApp security never works. So the data is there. Then any investigators are doing some investigation, they will consider your mobile. From there, the data whether you have taken or not, that is where they do that. Or they will consider your cloud data and look about that. So then other tools are machine learning and a machine learning based SIEM. See, this is also as part of the SIEM technologies, and SOC technologies are part of the proactive security. And of course, continuously security incident event management is very important aspect, because you are, whatever you are saying, monitoring, continuous monitoring, you required automated monitoring, you required SIEM. As it learns, it begins to also learn about malicious behavior warnings beyond its initial data input. If you are using end system security, it will only check end system security and continuously update it. But if you understand your network, this one, definitely you can implement in such a way that seam and collect the data, different logs from the different aspects, and bring it together and look about the integrated approach of that particular uh, monitoring activities and actions. So, and coming with the graphs is a very good option for proactive security. Let's say if you take logarithms, AI engine is fully integrated component of the logarithm next gen REST platform, delivering automated continuous analysis and correlation of all activity with respect to your system. If you require, you go to check it logarithm.com. So how that AI based seam would be enabling that identifying the various threat and hunting the threats and responsible for your security team. And of course, vulnerability exploit research is another area as part of the open proactive security. These are the areas which I'm talking about. What kind of researches possibilities are there? There are huge researches and market are required for this order. See, vulnerability and exploit research is there from long back, but with the few companies. So because this is a one typical exploit research is that encompasses the process engineering teams up to pinpoint flaws in the software programs. Of course, let's say take example of Netra Guard. So they identify all the softwares and continuously find out that what kind of vulnerabilities exist. And every update they will check that, continuously monitoring them in such a way that what kind of new vulnerabilities are evolving. And these effects could include reverse engineering. They may do reverse engineering, static and code analysis, along with the array of other initiatives to recognizing these vulnerability issues. So identifying the vulnerability issues is not only the vulnerability scanner, simple buy a scanner and do scan. It is also kind of an analysis of code, either it is static analysis and dynamic analysis, and understand the problems with respect to that software. And well before that, what kind of problems are faced can happen. That is where you need to look into that. And this is one of the this one you can download this and see that. So vulnerability research and exploit development, HackerU. If you wanted to become as an in this as an expert, these are the time. This is one training brochure, but however, you should have the knowledge in these activities. Like you need to understand how memory processes, stack, heaping, assembly. Of course, these four works in an operating system, and understanding your operating system. These four are very important, like assembly language, C, compilers, debuggers, and you need to understand memory-based hacks to know about such kind of heap overflows, format strings. And you should have a kind of knowledge on reverse engineering, fault injection, fuzzing, binary diffing, binary analysis, crash analysis. If crash, if you know that Windows internals, that Windows internals is one of the great for the security to understand various problems with respect to operating system. Windows memory management, DDL, dynamic DLL, dynamic link libraries, drivers, automation model, checksums. Then if it is coming to that, kernel vulnerabilities, hooking, Linux, then advanced reverse engineering. So architectures you should know, static analysis, deconstructing type of information, user debugging, kernel debugging. Then of course this is advanced level. So NOP method, attack execution. So most of the people will do this directly without any knowledge because of certified ethical hacker program and tools they will use it. Otherwise, in-depth knowledge won't be there with them. So lack of information and control, cell code installation, CPU specific executable, OS specific executable, metasploit. So then exploits, EIP, SCH. So these are the DEP, ASLR. These are the architecture based of various operating systems, protection and bypasses. So this way, if you have a knowledge and you could have become as a vulnerability exploit researcher as part of this particular activity. So then AI-based audit and assessment framework. See, deception work network we have seen, then monitoring we have seen, threat monitoring, threat hunting, then exploit and research method, then AI-based audit and assessment framework. Internal audit tasks within uh, large organizations are allowed by the volume of documentation, because lot of devices are there, lot of data you are creating. So somebody should audit your such kind of organizations. So because of the volume of documentation and slow audit response team, I have seen that auditing is done by doing them uh, from a January to December. When it is after completing the report, submitted report, you need to start again another set of the activities with respect to that year. So that is, this problem is always there for the large organizations. So audit quality also suffer when revamped. So there is something like required automatic audit framework, assessment framework. So this is one type of tool may expect within 1 year, 2 year, or if somebody is working on research, maybe how to audit assessment based on the AI basis, artificial intelligence or machine learning basis of audit and assessment framework. Otherwise, number of tools are there, audit and assessment framework. Then you have a big data, because in an organization, if you look into that, so organization you will get a large data with respect to these. Even if you are identifying or collecting the data because of the stopping the security, but you are collecting the each and every device, and that you are keeping at central places, and based on the scene recommendations, you are creating data. But sometimes these data sets are huge data sets, and anything you want to do research, you require some high performance. Those high performance can be given through some of the systems like Param Shower. We are distributing these Param Showers to various engineering colleges who would like to work on high performance, where this would be connected to one of the Param, Shivai, Param, Brahma, Param supercomputers, where you can run your AI-based things also. So if you look into that, proactive security product features, right from that what we discussed, threat intelligence and analysis framework is required. As part of threat intelligence and analysis framework, we require next generation deception network, sector specific threat detection. This is very much useful. These are the products which we, as part of the CDAC, which we are already evolving and supporting some various critical infrastructures. Sector specific threat detection. Sector specific means, so there is like 5 different sectors are already defined by NCIPPC, National Critical Infrastructure Protection Center. So NCIPC Protection Center, Critical Information, I forgot it. Sector specific threat detection means, so government and other agencies, banking sector, and power, energy, road and transport. These are the critical sectors in generally with respect to India. And you need to understand how these critical infrastructure, banking is financial institutes, and if it is energy like electrical, hydro energy, such kind of institutes. So these are the institutes have different kind of environments, network environments, operation technology environment. So these environments should have a specific threats, so that you need to identify and you have to give the solutions. Of course, threat hunting and intelligence platforms are required to identify the various. As being 5G, SDN are coming, so you need to utilize these kind of technologies to design and develop your threat intelligence. Because simple I say that your data pipe is 10G, That means you have a 10G network is coming to you, but you are keeping a firewall of 1G. So that means what? So 9G, it cannot check it. If anything 1GB comes, it simply leaves our max. So that is why you need to look into that. As per the 5G, SDN, how do you improve the things? Now coming to the proactive threat monitoring and deception framework. So the deception thing came in the above, but this is majorly for with respect to in a enterprise detection of APT. So that you need to identify whether your organization is having some APTs or not. And reinforcement learning and game theory is one of the thing, and multi-layer deception technology is the other thing as part of the proactive threat monitoring and deception framework. Now, edge security solutions are the secure web gateway. That means wherever you are hosting, that should be not required to IP this one. So you should implement some secure web gateway. So everybody knows this web gateway IP address, not the original IP address of the web server. Of course, it is there. The concept is there now. Also netting by using the principles of netting. But however, that secure gateway is the gateway where your web server is hosted back in 3 to 4 places, similar. So where that IP address it is going, that is the responsibility of the secure web gateway. It also solves loading problem. DDoS protection, that means distributed denial of service attacks, threat protection, bot protection, like a number of bots are sending loads lot of line. And zero trust solutions all are coming, edge security solution framework. So AI-enabled security incident and event management it reduces monitors and devices on regular basis. Artificial intelligence, any changes that happen, immediately why that change happened, it can estimate it. And of course, this is a uniform platform across different organizations or different centers of an organization, automated workflow, and AI-enabled user analytics, regulatory and compliances. These are the major features of the AI-enabled scene. And when coming to the vulnerability and exploit research framework, it is a framework capacity and capability building requirements are to understand various vulnerabilities and exploits, and in such a way that exploit infrastructure you build it, test it, and implement it. So a lot of tools and development is required, but everybody can implement this research framework so that you can support any kind of organization for them to build their AI vulnerability exploit framework. We have also Param Savak, where because every institute doesn't have that supercomputer, so that they can run supercomputing application, parallel applications through this Param Savak SDN network, new generation, next generation firewall technologies and editing and assessment. So they create this environment. Even though that is look like a server, minimal cost of 8 lakh, 9 lakh at engineering college, but however, huge data is required. The databases that could be connected to either Param of supercomputers. And audit and assessment framework-based audit, abuse-based audit, then technology-based audit, then compliance-based audit, standard-based audit. So many audits are there as part of audit and assessment framework. But all these audits should be applied at device, combination of the device, or entire organization to achieve various certification in the cybersecurity. So these all frameworks should be designed, prepared in such a way that some of you also consider whatever the nearest technology for further research. So all these technologies I made into one chapter. So what exactly you required? These are the things let's say okay. So you required some kind of building capability for proactive security. It's not easy what we are teaching. It's required a lot of efforts. So when you are building such kind of a capability, proactive security, or implementing your things at your place, enhancing your solutions with respect to the proactive security or enhancing the people at your organization, you make them as a capable to do that activity. See, for that in generally, the testing environment is required cyber range. These cyber ranges you already might have known. Some people might be having known. So that's what I will start as fast as fast because. So what is the time? In time?
Sir, we'll stop at 11:30 and we'll have question.
Oh, it's already 11:23. So I'll run these slides, and if you have a doubts, you can always ask me. But you always can keep a cyber range kind of mechanism at your college to train your students in the building and exercises. It is a cyber threats are everywhere, so the growing numbers are staggering. Data breaches to individual IT thefts, system outages to vulnerabilities to critical infrastructures. So what to be done? The universities, institutes, enterprises, and even agencies need to build, join, and expand a cyber range, because practice makes things perfect is the first skill. So when you practice it, so then only you can do these things as much as easily. So simple thing is that is cyber exercise tests the incident response of an organization. You should keep such kind of environment. If something happened, that can be make it as a cyber exercise. So that focusing on business impact is very important, so that implementing and simulating that kind of is always better. So if you are hosting in a web server at somewhere in the edge center, so that creating edge center at your place and acting some people as an attackers and some people as in a protectors, like in a proactive team, reactive team, and attackers. The attackers is generally called red team. There can be, these are the basically you need to environment created, and it's do essentially the issue finding as a penetration test, but it is not actually penetration test. It is a kind of a testing team, the red teaming, except they aim to find issues in how people work and not in the technology they use. So it is testing more on people, so that technology is anyway works, but how you as a people we are using this technology, how should we use with respect to security? That is what these exercises and simulations we required. So a cyber attack simulation exposes both known and unknown vulnerabilities by teams. A cyber exercise maybe is one part of the simulation. And cyber consultants acting like a cyber criminal and putting your defenses in real-time threat scenario. So for that, you need to create a kind of a tabletop exercises. And how to design a powerful tabletop exercise? So you clarify your objectives and outcomes, and choose the right participants and exercise team, that what kind of teams you require, which we'll discuss, and engage them in such a way that your output would be coming and preparing an action report. See, in a security incident preparedness activity, taking participants through the process of dealing with a simulated incident scenario. So even the organizations also do the things, but you are all from academic side, you also can create such kind of things. Host an application, let them test. Everywhere, every college might have some kind of people are there. So this is called InfoSec wheel, where color wheel, blending of developers with red, blue security teams. So mainly red, blue teams. The red team employees or contracts hired to be as an attackers, maybe ethical hackers that work for an organization, finding various security vulnerabilities that in a malicious basis, and where that individuals could exploit them like an attackers. Where other side, blue team, the organization dependents who are responsible for proactive measures within an organization. So they will try to implement proactive security measures or defensive security measures, where offensive security, the breakers are acting as a red team. So only having red and blue security teams is not enough. People building what must be defended need to be included. Let's see if you look about that the differences being. So red team is majorly offensive security, where blue team is defensive. Red team people we can say that ethical hackers, but blue team is like in a systems and network security professional who protect the infrastructure. Red team generally does exploiting the vulnerabilities, using all the vulnerabilities and write the exploit scripts, penetration testing, and where blue team try to cover the damage control. And if some attack has happened, they try to look about that incident response. They majorly on operational security, and if something happened, they will try to behind the threat like a threat hunters, and of course doing digital forensic. But red team, they all do like penetration testers, blockbacks testing, social engineering attacks, web application scanning. So what is the objectives of the any team assessment? The test in information environment, you need to ability to test your team's incident response capability, understand impact of the security breach, assessing your internal employees awareness about the information security, discover weakness in your development and testing process, test your organization ability to protect your critical assets from a real world attack. So these are the some of the benefits of the team exercise. Quantify risk factors, upgrade security posture, be prepared, know about the gaps, test your efficiency. And this is one approach of the team assessment. The attacks could be created in such a way that either active, physical, passive. So reconnaissance is nothing but information gathering and scanning of the entire system which you adapted for that assessment. And planning and preparation is basically is the client's environment by spying the like spying key people through vulnerability scans, gathering more. And attacks are major three types where we discussed it as active, physical, passive. So I hope these are some of the attacks will be discussed in the next classes. Otherwise, the major difference between penetration testing is the time box for testing as a brief, and red team can be extended as much as until you receive it. So testers use commercial penetration test tool, where in the red team they think more creatively and use anything at hand of testing. And employees are aware of the testing is taking place. And in red teaming, there is no such kind of thing. So somebody is doing, and blue team is trying to patch it and do it. So that is where this one. And yellow team comes that build and design software and systems and integration. See, so red team like attackers, blue team like systems protectors like administrators and all. But any application which we are developing through by these developers, like in a build and design software systems and integration, application developers, software engineers, architects fall into this particular activity. Their focus is usually on requirements, functionality, user experience, and backend performance, not security. That is where we need to create something. If you look about the theory or reality, yellow team builds it, red team breaks it, blue team defends it, yellow team again fixes it. This is what actually required. Yellow team builds it because they develop the programs, and red team identifies the gap areas and vulnerabilities like attackers, and blue team is covering those areas with respect to either network security firewalls. Somewhere they will try to protect it. Meanwhile, the yellow team again fix those vulnerabilities and come back. But what happens today? Yellow team building it, red team breaking it, blue team complains about it, and yellow team ignores it. And of course, management hides it. That is where it is happening. At least 67% of organizations are following the second one, that reality. That's where. And if you look about the colors, the red and blue is the purple. So those who are having the red teaming skills and also having the blue team skills, we consider as the purple. We can use them for both purposes. When developers and the protectors becomes a green, see, you developing and you know how to protect is like a green team. And attackers as a red team and a yellow team, the developers, even though they are developers and attackers, they are orange team. They are very, very, very sophisticated hackers. They become. So like this, they have their vulnerabilities, and there is a white team where white team creates the cyber attack scenarios. instructors manage green team, yellow team, and red team. So if you are implementing as part of the academic, rather than simply teaching and hacking things, understanding hacker, so any application which you create, because I understand any batch of the any engineering students of computer science, they have these skills. So either one or two members might be having these skills as a red team, of course, green team also. So other teams you can create it because they by default there's developers and programmers. So this environment, if you create at the first year and second year itself, by the time fourth year they become as a good software security system people. So with this, I'm completing my thing.